How's it, logo?
Hello, YouTube.
The eight looks a little bit better than the 9. I'm just gonna say. Oh, sorry.
This is the 8-9 combo. I'm Brett McKay and Harry Jones. In some good news for Australian fans, the Wallabies will not concede a record loss this coming weekend. Hello, mate. How you doing?
That's quite the search there. How's it,
Take
Brett?
what I can.
I am back out of a seething, teeming, believing waterfront public that could not stop partying. And I must say also, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a kind of a weird reveal here. The number one question I got about the visitors from New Zealand in Cape Town as I walked around, jumped around, biked around, abseiled around, hang glided around, and sailed around was, do you know Jamie Wool? And I was like, yeah, I do. And they were like, how good's he? And I go,
how good is he?
Baby, he can go 100 years. So, that was and interestingly enough, Jamie Wool became the most popular Kiwi whilst I was there. And just so happens that you went and invited him to be on the pod. So I'm excited about this today.
It's almost like it was meant to happen. It's great to have everyone aboard for episode 31 of the 8-9 Combo Rugby podcast. And we are brought to you throughout the Rugby Championship by Chasing the Sun 2, that outstanding 5-part all-access series documenting the Springboks' memorable 2023 Rugby World Cup journey, and which is coming soon to RugbyPass TV worldwide. Simply head to rugbypass.tv and sign up for free, and you can watch the first series from 2019 there already. Let's get into the week, mate.
Because I haven't gotten over watching the Springboks win. I just want to keep watching them win in every year.
Yeah, that's that unhealthy arrogance comment that I never remember. Cheers, me mate. Cheers. What have you got from the weekend?
Cheers. Okay, my cheers is as the people
that was
filed
the sound
in,
of Harry just thinking of it.
As the people filed in all their colors and hues and doctrines and backgrounds and faith systems and philosophies, from Sea Point with a dying light over the Atlantic and the crashing waves, or from the waterfront where they had probably gotten sauced up in a Scottish or Irish or a Swahili bar, I felt this anticipation, this nervousness, not so much about playing the All Blacks, because that hasn't become, that's not as nerve-wracking as it has been in the past. It was, would Cape Town let the country down? Because we've been accused of being a soft place to play, too friendly to the All Blacks, too much contingent support, too vibey, maybe too late to the game. Like, oh my God, the game's tonight, honey, let's go. And too late.
Famously a Crusaders home game once upon a time.
But everyone was there on time, and we gathered, and we were there way early, maybe 2 hours early. And the scenes before the game, marching bands, not 2 marching bands, but 5 drum majorettes. There were people doing Broadway plays. There were men stripping their costumes off to reveal budgie smugglers with the South African flag. There just was no end to the entertainment. Right. And I think that ended up making us feel really good about ourselves, and then the game happened. So the cheers are, what a production, what a game day. People helping disabled people to their seats, broad concourses, places to pee, beer aplenty, no French people in sight, and it was a wonderful day.
Excellent. That's a good cheers. That's a good cheers. I'm going to bring the tone down a bit.
Oh,
I've got to say. I'm going to bring the tone down a bit. And my cheers is to the people who still want to keep singing from the song sheet that involves dropping Sean McMahon into the Wallabies team. And it's come up again over the weekend after the loss. He's one of the most common names that gets dropped in. Sean McMahon, and I'll repeat what I wrote in a Rugby Pass column a couple of weeks ago now. Sean McMahon has not played a League One game for Suntory in Japan since March 2022. That is 2.5 years ago, people. He has been managing chronic injury after chronic injury, to the point that Suntory did not even list him in their squad last year. He was so injured, he was not even in their squad. Not listed in their squad. That's how Sam Cane ended up over there. He's back in their squad for this year. He hasn't played a game in 2.5 years.
Mon frère, a question for your Gier. Are you advancing the novel theory that a person must play rugby in order to be good at playing rugby? Is that what you're trying to say?
No. I'm simply advancing the theory that someone must play rugby in order to be selected to play rugby.
Sean McMahon's a great player, but you're right. He's been doing, he's in Bali most of the time, having fun.
His Instagram feed suggests that he is fit and healthy again, but he has not been on a football field for a long, long time. And ask me how I know this, mate. Please, I want you to ask me how I know this.
Oh, why,
Because
Sage, do you know this?
Because when I was wondering this a few weeks ago, I literally looked through every Suntory team sheet for the last 2.5 years until I saw his name.
Wow.
Like round
I just went on his Insta and looked at him and
22.
his buddy smugglers in Bali and thought he's probably not in Suntory.
There you go. Anyway, that's my G's. People, if you want to select someone from overseas, let them be fit and actually playing.
Fair.
That's that.
Fair.
Another return guest this week, mate, and you have given away, and he does join us next.
Music break.
We love a good rugby tourist on the 8-9 combo, and this week's guest is fresh from a South African tour, so productive that Springboks fans are now accusing Ben Smith of being him. He's gained the distribution rights for brandy cokes into every rugby venue in New Zealand at every level. And for all this, he still has time to return to the 8-9. Please welcome back Radio New Zealand sportswriter and author Jamie Wall. Hello, mate. Welcome back. How you going?
Hello, boys. I'm doing great. I'm a little bit tired after a long trip back from South Africa, but yeah, like as always, happy to make time for you two gentlemen.
I was going to say, have you recovered yet? It is a hell of a trip back, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the trip itself took a toll. We did a lot of eating and drinking, and just the work was quite intense. When you're away with the All Blacks, there's always something happening. We're filing stories up to sort of 3 times a day, and there were a lot of things to talk about. Especially after the first test, it was kind of like for New Zealand, it was a perfect storm narrative, an All Black loss, a refereeing controversy, and a haka controversy as well. So those things all go absolutely great, but it also means it's a very late night working. But it was Johannesburg, and I wasn't really going to be doing anything else late at night there other than staying in my hotel room.
So, brother, you went the positive route with your catchphrase "How goods," which took on another life of its own. How did you come up with that? Was it just happenstance? Did you just kind of wonder your way into how goods?
How good a catchphrase is, by the way?
Yeah. That was a bit of an accident, really, a happy accident. I'd got to the hotel and I just flicked on the TV and was watching a Currie Cup game, and it was a really good game between like Northern Transvaal and Griqualand. And I just tweeted, I just thought, oh well, just let people know I'm in South Africa. This is a good way to do it. And I said, how good's the Currie Cup? Because I was actually enjoying it, and it got a few likes. And I thought, oh yeah, that's all right. And then I think the one that really kicked it off though was how good's brandy and coke. And then everybody was like, right, this guy's for real.
Jamie's having a good tour.
So then every morning I'd wake up and the boys I was with we'd brainstorm what could we do next, what's good. Yeah, and it wasn't hard because all the stuff we were doing was good. Like, I mean, that was the thing about it. It wasn't like a gag or a planned thing. I was literally just recording what I was doing, who I was seeing, the way I was feeling, because it was a great couple of weeks. So I think people just responded to that positivity quite well. I think that also South Africans obviously very proud of their country, and rightly so. There's a great lot of things to be proud of in it, and I was finding them, and I was meeting those people, and I got the response was overwhelming, and it was a really gratifying thing to be able to do, and made a lot of friends through it.
I mean, I'm not joking. I was literally approached by a waiter at La Colombe, and he was excited to see me a little bit. But then he said, "Do you know Jamie Wall?" And he said, "How could we get him here so he could do how's good about our place, our restaurant?" And I said, "I'll put in a word for you." So it became like a Michelin star. That was the Jamie Wall approval.
Did you become Jamie Wall's booking agent? Did you?
No, but so I know you've been in and around the South African story for such a long time, and the great book. Everyone must read about the 100 years of it, the 100 years of war of it. But it just felt like a different feeling. I mean, did you feel differently? Did you feel like you were seeing the country in different ways for the first time? How did it kind of, now that you're sitting back and have a little bit of chance to reflect?
Yeah, absolutely, I did. I mean, it's that's the great thing about our jobs, is that we get to go places and see things and experience things in a kind of a different way than you normally would, because you're working, and you can either look at it as a work trip where you're just hectic and, you know, messing around all the time, or you can look at it as like, well, this is what it would actually be like to live here. You know, like I'm using the public transport system. I'm sort of having to find quick fixes for dinner and how to get around, and I'm having to interact with people who live here about just basic normal stuff, not just getting up in the morning and jumping on a tour bus and going somewhere and having everything handed to you. Like, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's kind of cool to know that when you leave a place, you have a sort of better knowledge of just the local customs and environment and the way things are done. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert or anything, and you know, I would have loved to sort of have picked up a bit more of the language and things, but you know, there's only so much you can do in 2 weeks. But I think with that, it was more just letting people know that this is a cool place. We're having a good time. And I think also from a New Zealand point of view, whenever we talk about South Africa, there's this big narrative of safety. Like, is it a safe place to go? You know, are you going to be okay? And I just wanted people to know, like, yeah, I'm safe. I'm having a great time. Like I wouldn't be doing this if bad things were happening to me. And this was the best way to do it. Instead of saying, oh, you know, just talking about danger and safety, just talk about positivity, because then people are more likely to engage. And I think it worked, because a lot of people were saying, like, wow, I'm sort of viewing this in a different sort of way. Like, don't get me wrong, like, you know, we were careful about what we did and where we went and everything. But yeah, at no point at all did I feel unsafe or threatened.
Was that the longest period of time you'd spent in South Africa? You felt like you had the chance to really do it justice?
Oh, it was my first time in South Africa.
Right.
I'd not been. I was supposed to go in 2020.
Oh,
yeah, I was supposed to go in 2020, but I obviously, you know what happened that year. So yeah, this was my first time, and I think that we all left thinking, man, this tour, which is like 99% confirmed, if that goes ahead, like, that's going to be an epic 5 weeks, because now we are, when we go back, we are going to get to do the things we wanted to do, and we are going to be able to see more of the things. And because we kind of know our way around a little bit, we're going to be able to share that knowledge with people.
Yeah, one of the main points I got from the Kiwis I ran into, and not Kiwis who were based in South Africa, people who had actually traveled, was this amazement they had at the size and scale of things. I ran into this guy at the tip of Cape Point, you know, where you see the two oceans collide, and he was just amazed. He kind of said, like, this peninsula could be one of our islands, and you know, just the time it took to get places. But also, I think they came away with the complexity, like you said, learn the language. Like, which language? Languages. If you're hanging around on the waterfronts in Cape Town, you're going to hear a guy speak 4 or 5 blended, because that's what they do. And I think everything is a little more complicated than it seems, including when you get in trouble, like when the ATM machine ate my card. You know, just a wonderful thing that happened next in Pretoria through bureaus and offices to get it back.
So just to clarify, was that your card or was that our card?
I got it back. It doesn't matter. And it prevented me for about 4 hours from not spending things. So when you look back now, and I think you were sort of a north-south visitor. You were in the Joburg area and then you got down in Cape Town. What are the big differences you picked up from that, which are immense, obviously?
Oh, well, I mean, one's got a massive mountain in the middle of the city, which you can't miss, which really helps when you're trying to orientate yourself.
Yes.
Like that. I mean, I grew up in Wellington, and it's a pretty similar sort of geographic landscape in terms of, like, you have this just big hill dominating. So wherever you look, you kind of know where you are, which I quite liked. I mean, obviously being near the sea is being New Zealander, like you're way more used to that. And also, we all got altitude sickness in Johannesburg as well. We're all getting bleeding noses and sore throats and that sort of thing, which was quite the experience, which took us actually a couple of days to figure out what the hell was going on. But yeah, I think also, I mean, there's clearly like a cultural difference between the two places. I mean, they're far enough apart that they could be two different countries, really. But there is this one, unifying narrative between two, which is obviously we're there on test week. So like all anyone was talking about was the All Blacks and the Springboks, which was awesome. And I think, Joburg's it's a tough city, man. Like it's a tough city with a hard edge and a reputation that it clearly, has earned. But it's clear that they're trying to overcome the challenges. There's a lot of hope there, and it was evidenced in just the way that they got the transportation to the game going. Like they'd organised, because they have this really good high-speed train network up there, the How Train, which is like better than anything we've got in New Zealand. And they'd organised that to link up with another rail network to provide safe travel to and from Ellis Park.
Yeah. So I saw the headlines about this. What was that about? Why was that so special for someone completely uninitiated?
Because it was the first time they'd reopened the train line in like 10 years, and it had been used as basically a garbage dump for about 10 years. And so there'd been this big project to clean it up in order for it to be used again for events at Ellis Park. And it worked really well, because of course, we're looking at it from, okay, how are we going to get to this place and back safely? And I was lucky enough to get a ride on it earlier in the week because of a media event that had happened around with it, and it worked really well. And I was thinking like, oh, this is like a big PR thing for the local government. Like, there's going to be heaps of cops and security guards, and there were like along the route. Like again, I never felt unsafe because we were just under constant kind of with cops and even soldiers like keeping an eye on us and everything. And it pulls up right outside the gate there. So to me, it was like one of the best sort of travel experiences to and from a stadium I've ever had. Much better than what I had to do at the World Cup last year. Like it was up there with, like a Japanese style, way of getting to and from a game. So I was really impressed by that. And then in Cape Town, obviously, we were staying in the waterfront, so we didn't need to worry about transport. So we just walked there along with the crowd, and just like you said, Harry, the bar area around the waterfront was packed, and it was just kind of, it's a beautiful day, and you could feel the vibe going all the way. And it was a great stadium, and like I'm a bit bummed I got to miss out on going to Newlands, but yeah, that place was really cool. Like that was a really cool stadium in terms of like building an atmosphere as you go there.
And proper sizes of seats, Jamie. Like you could actually sit in your seat without someone in your lap. so many rugby stadiums were built when we were smaller, and it's just like if you're in Cardiff or London and Twickenham, you are literally just like this the whole game.
That's because they were all built for the same gauge as Roman asses, wasn't it? Doesn't everything go back to that?
Yeah. So, JB, you were presented a lot in South Africa as an expert, an author, a distinguished author, esteemed author. Did you find that you have imposter syndrome and go, nah, I'm a guy, plays rugby. I write shit sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I had to preface everything with like, I wrote a book about these two teams playing against each other, but I've actually never been here. So the book is very much from a New Zealand point of view. And I want to learn as much as I can about being here so that when I do talk about this rivalry, because I often get called on to as a subject matter expert, I can use that knowledge to influence my views. And being there, you can't help but be influenced by just this pure sensory experience of being there. Like, what it's like to go to Ellis Park. You've seen it with your own eyes. You know what that atmosphere feels like, and it's something that'll stick with me forever. Because I'd probably say that's probably the greatest atmosphere I've ever been in a rugby game ever.
Wow. It's so fucking loud, man. It's so loud, Brett. It's like you cannot think. It starts to take over your brain.
It broke the mic on my camera that I had. It was that loud.
Yeah, right.
And then going to Cape Town as well, and he, being an All Blacks film, being a New Zealander, we've heard for years and years like, oh, they get all this great support in Cape Town, and it's like playing a home game and everything. And I remember thinking, like, oh yeah, that's a good story. I'll write something up about that. And sure enough, there was a couple hundred people at the airport waiting for them, which was nice vision and everything. But what I realized throughout the week was like, actually, the Springboks have pretty much won that place back, because on game day, like, there were locals wearing their All Blacks gears and there were pockets of it, but it was nowhere near as much as what I thought it was going to be like. It was kind of like just going to a game kind of anywhere else in the world where, the All Blacks just have big support, like in a place like Buenos Aires or Tokyo or things. And like, there's nothing against the people that showed up to support the All Blacks, because like there's like a lot of history there and a lot of reasons why and everything. But now I know it's not something that we just sort of immediately bring up when you talk about Cape Town anymore, because I feel like the mood there has changed because of what the Springboks now represent.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's generational as well. I think the people who are hanging on to that, were in their 50s or older. It's very difficult to find a 25-year-old guy who's vibing with Damian Willems, Cheslin Colby.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I did find some young people who, because I went for a wander around and just had a yarn with some people. And I did ask them about that, because I'm like, well, you weren't even born when, because this is a long time ago now, and like you're considerably even younger. And I'm like, did it come from your parents? Did it come in? And what I was finding was, it was like, no, we just like the rugby team. Like we're just fans of them. And where it was coming from wasn't this sort of deep generational trauma. It was more just like, we're just young people and we know what we like on social media, and like that's why we like this team. The same way someone in New Zealand supports Manchester United or whatever. Like that's just that was sort of more where it was coming from. So that was a really big one for me in terms of just being there and learning things.
You do a better view than I would.
You mentioned your book.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. You mentioned your book, and we've come up a few times, and you said it's very obviously written from a New Zealand perspective. Do you feel like now you've experienced enough of South Africa, even in a short trip like this, that you might change your narrative if you wrote that book again?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that was 3-4 years ago now that I did that, and a lot's happened since then.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if I had the chance, I would probably do, like an addendum at the end, perhaps, just to say like, okay, well, that's where the book finished, because it kind of finishes on a bit of a bum note, because it's during COVID and it's leading up to this 100th game that we know is, was supposed to be at Eden Park, and it was supposed to be this huge thing. And there was supposed to be this real appreciation of the rivalry and a lot of acknowledgement of the history that had gone into it. And it all just kind of got washed away because they were just trying to figure out where the hell they could play it. And it ends up being in bloody Townsville, of all places.
Yes.
So now I think what's going to happen is they're going to try and take what that game should have been in terms of pageantry and importance and put it into this tour that's going to happen. And it's all working out brilliantly, because as much as, it's shit that the All Blacks lost and things, it's meant that there's now this big revenge or redemption aspect for when they go back there. And I think that, knowing what I know about, South Africa, and again, like it's 2 weeks, like I'm not like an expert or anything, but actually being there and actually, meeting the people and seeing things, which is what I was originally planning on doing when I was writing the book, it completely changes everything. It's not like I'm not, hey, still go buy the book, don't please. But
It's like an
but
addition.
at the same time, maybe hopefully in the lead up to that tour, maybe write a second edition of it and add in what I know now as opposed to what I knew then.
The rivalries animate sport, obviously. Man U, Liverpool, or even Everton, Liverpool, or Man U, Man City, and so forth. They can generate things that no social media marketing department needs to do. It doesn't even matter, just a guy throwing a brick at you from Everton because you have a Liverpool shirt on or something. When I'm trying to explain rugby and get people excited about it who are non-rugby at all, maybe from the States, maybe from somewhere that don't even know, like from Mexico, when I go into the All Blacks-Springboks rivalry, everything makes sense. Immediately people like the story. It's a once upon a time story. It's got a sort of a villain and it's got sort of a hero. Those roles shift here and there. You can choose, you can support the villain if you want to, actually, sometimes. How is that rivalry in your mind, looking at it now, just recently? How has it changed? Is it still as powerful as it used to be? Or is it, kind of a new kind of rivalry?
I think it's definitely getting back to what it was. And when I say what it was, I mean during the 1950s and 60s when the All Blacks and the Springboks were the two undisputed best teams in the world, and them playing each other it wasn't like a World Cup, it was more like a World Heavyweight Championship fight. Yeah. And so, I mean, on the field, yes, because at the moment the Springboks are, can't argue with what they've done. The All Blacks are in about as close to what they'd admit to being a rebuilding phase as possible. And so I think that there's really compelling reasons to watch just purely for rugby terms, because of course, they played in the last World Cup final. So every time they play now, it's just billed as a rematch of the World Cup final. So, no matter what happens, it's still the two best teams. And I think now, because the Springboks have won the last two World Cups in a row, that New Zealanders, younger New Zealanders, really now get an appreciation of just how important they are to the All Blacks. And because for a long time there, it wasn't, because the Springboks form post 1995 was so up and down, it probably wasn't held in the same regard. And a lot of that is to do with the fact that, they were playing each other 2-3 times a year. And that it only really counted when they played in World Cups. So I think right now, because we're not used to seeing the All Blacks lose consistently to teams, that when they play next, it's going to be absolute, that's the biggest deal. They're going to have to have this game they're going to have to have this game at Eden Park next year. They will, because it's a guaranteed sellout. They can put the Eden Park record on the line there. It'll be the number one ranking. So it's kind of, again, going back to the boxing analogy, kind of unifying the titles on it. And this time it's stacked in the All Blacks' favour because they're playing at the ground where they never lose at. So I think that it's going to be a really cool build-up to the Test next year, which again is going to lead into the tour the year after, and we've got this kind of showpiece event that I think the All Blacks have kind of lacked at home, at least for a long time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
When was the last time, Jamie, and I'm hoping you've looked at the record books, that the All Blacks lost 5 straight games to someone?
In 1949.
Oh, right.
Four times.
I'm thinking
5. No,
for next year.
5 never. It's never happened.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Sorry, the All Blacks lost 6 tests in 1949, but it was.
But it was different because it was a huge break in the Second World War, and this one sort of comes more in a proper, almost a calendar year, right? So
okay, so that's not those aren't the reasons why the All Blacks remember why they lost that. It was because of crooked refereeing, but and a schedule that took them up and down out of altitude consistently, which messed them up. So yeah, there's that. I just thought I'd bring that up. But yeah.
But imagine that next year.
Park,
the hype.
So there's just so much. There's things riding on it.
The Eden Park record. I mean, I'm getting excited about it now. You're right. The build-up's going to be exceptional.
One thing that's weird, Jamie, is I couldn't help but watching, especially at Ellis Park when I was watching the guys I remembered being in the rain in Twickenham in 2015 and watching our guys lose to your guys in the semi-final by 2 points. And there were so many players on the field that were there. You know, Jesse Creel, Damon Delende, Andre Pollard, Peter Steph-Toy was earlier in the tournament, Ibn Etzebeth, Frans Malherbe. It was dotted. Sia Khaleesi played in that tournament as well. But I went on the All Black side and was just Bowden Barrett. That's the only one I remember. Maybe I'm wrong. And then, you know, the terrible years and when the 57-0, all that, same guys. And then I thought, what a long story for a guy like Frans Malherbe, Ibn Etzebeth, and these guys to finally get used. Like Frans Malherbe has won 4 matches in a row against All Blacks. So you say rebuild. Hasn't the rebuild been kind of going on for a while? Doesn't it predate Razor? And what is it that the All Blacks are trying to find that would be the Jerome Kano, the Richie McCaw, the Kieran Reid? You know, like where is that search going? And is it just a matter of getting people from overseas, or is there a young, you know, cohort coming up that's like the Box when they were 20, 21, 22 in 2015?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's also about the 20th time I've been asked in the last 2 weeks, because that's the number one narrative right now is the Springboks are picking guys from overseas and it's worked, and the All Blacks aren't picking out guys from overseas and it's perceived to be not working.
Yes.
My
very similar thing in Australia at the moment as well.
Yeah, so my take on it is that you're dealing with 2 pretty different economies, professional rugby setups, and the reasons why NZ Rugby don't want the All Blacks playing overseas are pretty different to the ones that SA Rugby probably have said yes to. I agree with the rules that they've got in place at the moment. I think that if you open the gates on New Zealand players, there'd be no one left, and we're already starting to see it, because you know, they give these kind of deals where you can go overseas for a little bit, but you got to come back. And, you know, if you play X amount of tests and things, and like they're all taking these options to go and cash up overseas. So if you simply flung the doors open and said,
been had.
Yeah. So they're managing it properly. I think that if you did that, you'd destroy Super Rugby, which is like completely integral to the All Blacks development as a team, because for all the talk about South Africa not being in Super Rugby, and that's a pretty layered conversation, the All Blacks get the most, like the New Zealand's elite level players get the most out of playing each other consistently and playing alongside each other consistently. So to tinker with that situation, as much as like Super Rugby has flaws, and like I admit that, and you know they need to be fixed. That reason alone is why New Zealand Rugby is so keen to keep things the way they are. You know, it's an interesting one though, because you kind of get the feeling that it's inevitable. It's like the way when professionalism came in the first place, it was just a matter of time before it's gonna happen. And I think what they're trying to do is basically get to a point where they can go and play in Japan, but they can't go anywhere else, and that they come some sort of deal with a Japanese club, and also that NZ Rugby has some sort of oversight on what they're doing up there, because that's the key thing, is that their load has to be managed in order to do it, because that's the actual thing that's keeping them in New Zealand as well, is because they're part of the Rugby Players Association, and there's a strict limit on like how much you can play. And if you let a guy go play over in France or Japan or whatever, New Zealand Rugby can't say, nah, this guy has to take a break now.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it as well.
They'll get to their prescribed 30 games a year before the finals in France. Correct. The way it would play. You mentioned the strength of New Zealand players playing each other. For all the talk that's been going on about Super Rugby on both sides of the Tasman, and you know, Australia should do this, New Zealand should do this. Would New Zealand maintain that same advantage and get that same, I suppose, competitive advantage from playing each other if it was more than the 5 teams? So if they went back to an NPC type Purely
Yeah,
domestic?
Again, this one gets brought up a lot. I don't think so. I don't think there's any value in sort of going back to the way provincial rugby was, because I think what would happen is that if you went to an NPC model that was running for however many weeks, it would have to run for like 20 weeks, which is already unsustainable because most of the provinces can't afford that. All of the best players would simply migrate to the Super Rugby home teams anyway. So you would just get the Blues, Chiefs, Hurricanes, Crusaders, and Highlanders playing in different jerseys, because that's what the NPC was back in the 1990s when everyone loved it. It was like Auckland were running out, 13, 14 All Blacks in their team. And if you take those guys, stack them all into these places, and then you put them against the likes of Taranaki or Hawke's Bay or whoever, it'll just be a really one-sided competition, which is what the NPC was, actually, because that's what people don't remember about it. The other thing is that there's just not enough money to sustain that. You need this environment.
I actually asked the question, not necessarily like the financials. There's concerns about the financials, but just if you go from 5 teams to 8 or 10 or 12, that competitive tension is going to get watered down.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be completely diluted, and you would end up with like a development version that is inferior to what we have at the moment. Because for all its faults, again, I can't stress this enough, for all its faults, Super Rugby has done one very good thing in its existence, which is produce good All Blacks. Like it's done it. And you just need to look at how many times the All Blacks have won the Tri Nations and the Rugby Championship to see that. Because yes, the last few years have been tough, like for the All Blacks, but overall, the All Blacks win record in the professional era has gone up considerably, like by like 10% since the game went pro. So if there's one union that I feel like adapted to professionalism better than anyone else, it was New Zealand, and the proofs in the record that the All Blacks have set.
Yeah, it's more.
It seems like any discussion of decline, and I'm happy to entertain any question about anything. That's the nature of debate. It doesn't seem like New Zealand's fallen off. It's that the other countries like Ireland have stepped up, and so it's changed the equation. It's like New Zealand it was harder to get any better, but they obviously, I think, did get better in some ways. And then recently, in the last couple of years, it's been been caught. Like there's been other places that have adopted professionalism finally. South Africa was notoriously amateurish, and so it's more like they got caught. It wasn't that they got worse. And now I guess the question is for Razor, what would he do? What can he do to reestablish a number 1 status, or be in the top 2 consistently? Like, what does he need to do that will make the All Blacks different than they are right now?
I think from what we've seen so far is that he's changing things, but only incrementally. Like he could have come in and just blown everything up and started all over again and brought in all his Crusaders players. I mean, he's kind of doing that anyway. But if you look at the first team of the year, it was basically the same team as last year, and the only changes were guys that had left or were injured. And since then, it started to change, and it's changed off the back of injuries. So for example, like Satiti came in as like, oh, he's a bit of a wild card, even though he had a fantastic Super Rugby season, fully deserved his selection. But he finally gets his chance because of an injury. And I feel that's kind of probably a better way of going about it than simply just chucking him in to start against England.
Change sake. Yeah.
You bring him into the environment, you get him training and everything, you get his confidence up when he's around the boys, and then you name him against the Springboks and say it's because of like what you've done in this environment leading up. Same with Ratama. As well, to a lesser extent, he came in that second test against England, didn't look out of place at all. I thought he had a pretty good game on Saturday, but it's just a case of like if you look at all of the new guys that Robertson selected, and you put them in a team, it's like you're kind of looking at like, okay, that's what the team's going to be like in 2 years' time, and that's why again I go back to the rebuild word that they are kind of doing, but they can't admit it because it's the All Blacks, and if you say rebuild, it means we're okay with losing.
Don't do rebuilds.
Yeah, they don't, even though they are. So like we can say it, but they can't. If that makes sense.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Is there looking forward now? There's Bledisloe tests now in a week and a half. Is there a nagging feeling in the back of the mind in New Zealand, and it's a bit of a long shot at the moment on current Australian form, but what if this is the year?
I mean, I was worried after leaving Cape Town Stadium on Saturday, and then about 80 minutes later, I wasn't worried. Because, and when I say worried, I mean, like, I don't want the All Blacks to lose the Bledisloe Cup this year because we've just had 4 years of, you know, a coaching regime that was just under immense scrutiny, and it takes a toll on your fan base. It takes a toll on, obviously, on the coaching staff. It takes a toll on the players, and it takes a toll on the media as well, because the relationship between the media and the team just got so bad throughout that time that it became like, and actually, you know, you look at this like this is the dream job. I get paid to watch rugby. It got to the point where a lot of us were like, this just kind of isn't worth it. Like this for the amount of stress that we're under, and the amount of just kind of bad vibes that we have to cook up like every day just to do our jobs. So just for that reason, I don't want it to happen. I can't really see it happening. You got to remember, like, yeah, we're all doom and gloom about the All Blacks, but they just went to South Africa. They went to Ellis Park and they lose by 4 points. They go to Cape Town, they lose by 6 points. Both of those games, but for the bounce of the ball, decision going the other way, they could have won. And that's against the world champions at home, at a place that's now probably, alongside Eden Park, the toughest place to play in the world. So it's not that bad. If you'd said at the start of the season, if you'd said that at the start of the season the All Blacks are going to do that, most people would have been like, okay, yep, that's fair, because of course the Springboks are the one team that the All Blacks can lose to, and no one's going to get like mad about.
I went back and looked.
Australia would be a whole lot different, though.
I went back and checked and looked on that, Jamie, and all the stuff before the tour was saying a split was what was on offer. Like New Zealand thought, come away with one of those. Nobody was saying sweep. That was the passing grade. Legitimate was got to win one, and then you lose two, and like you said, it was close enough where no one was thinking it was a massacre. The one abiding narrative, though, that seemed to bother New Zealanders is how it was lost. You know, late game, not getting out of your 22, not getting out of your half, not even really making incursions until that final lineup that was stolen. The feeling that it was out of your hands, that you put the destiny in the Springboks' hands. And a couple with that was, it wasn't like old hands guarding the box either. You had a 22-year-old on the field, 23-year-old at 9. So there was this feeling of, no, it's not just old box beating our young guys. It's kind of people that we've been around. Damien McKenzie's been in and around this thing for a while. Rico Ioane at 13. Is that real? Are we trying to shoehorn Artie Surveyor into 8 and that compromises loose trio? The loose trio, midfield and 9-10. To me, I just keep reading about it from New Zealand. I don't know what the answer is. What do you think it is? You know, is Damien McKenzie or not?
I think it's a fair point you make about the way it lost, because, you know, that's the way the All Blacks beat other teams, is that they're almost they'll tease them into thinking that they're in the game and then just finish it with some sort of knockout blow. And you think, and then you're left at the end thinking, how do we ever think that team was even with a shot? So I think that's probably the thing that cuts the most for All Blacks fans, is that we used to, you know, the All Blacks being on the other side of that sort of thing. It also was a bit telling that in the wash-up of the Springboks, like the first one that they had, you know, local journalists were saying, like, oh, they didn't actually even play that well. and so that was quite tough to take. Or they didn't play well until like the last 20 minutes, and also just the fact that the bomb squad came on and did exactly what they were supposed to do, and it felt like the All Blacks had been kind of out-coached a little bit, but like out-thought. And there's a real kind of lack of innovation around these selections, because if you look at that second test, it was like, I think it was Asafo Aumua only came on to replace Cody Taylor for his HIA.
Right.
I think Fletcher Newell only got on for about 4 minutes at the end, and Sam Derry didn't get on at all.
Oh wow!
That's almost
Yeah.
astounding. And then you had ALB not bringing a lot of change. It almost seemed like, okay, Bowden Barrett, do something. Okay. So our plan is Bowden Barrett, do something. Yeah.
Someone do something.
And against England, that actually worked, by the way. So I thought, well, okay, so maybe there's some logic to that, but I didn't ever think it was going to work against this particular setup. And my wonder was on just where you want to play. It just didn't seem like McKenzie had an ability to put the All Blacks. And the All Blacks to me has always had someone who was just saying, I'm the general of this game. I'm the one.
Yeah. I think as now looking back, I think that series probably told us more about England than it did about the All Blacks. And I think the question mark over McKenzie is something that's probably never going to go away, because he's just that kind of player that you know that he's just as capable of making a massive line break and setting up a try as he is to just be looking in the other direction and have the ball sail over his head, which is what happened in bloody Wellington. And it's kind of strange that we're still having this conversation, and he's like a 50 test player. Like, we should know this by now. We should trust this guy by now. The one thing I will say though about McKenzie and the constant sort of scrutiny of him being in the All Blacks is that's also very similar to the reaction that Richie Mo'unga got in his first few years as an All Black, which was not so much that he was this sort of you don't know what's going to happen guy, but it was more that like everyone said he's a great Super Rugby player, but he's not a test player. And it took until like 2021 before he actually established himself and with a really good body of work. So I feel like if Damian McKenzie can do that, then he's going to be the guy. But he has to hurry up and do it because
he's played 50 tests already.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the rumor is that Mo'unga is going to come back next year. So yeah.
And I wonder if that's why suddenly McKenzie's eyeing off a deal in.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about this one. I mean it's a good rumor and everything, but these do sort of come around quite a bit regarding the All Blacks. Like, I'm not saying it's not true. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, of course. No, it's more than fair. Yeah. So again, then casting an eye forward are these two Bledisloe tests now the chance for Scott Robertson to go, all right, we actually need to try a few things here. Is two tests against Australia now the two tests against Argentina 5 years ago?
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. A reason why is because of the really tough way the Bledisloe Cup. Yeah, well, the Bledisloe Cup set up that the Wallabies need to win both games, which is really really difficult to do. So you actually can roll the dice in this first test and make some changes, or at least stick with the team that played in Cape Town, because that was a much changed team. And it's not like they played particularly badly. I just think the Springbok defence just was really, really good in that match. I don't think the Wallaby defence is going to be that good. They just
go out on a limb.
Yeah. I think that they'll be going in pretty low on confidence, and it is a good. And Sydney, when you talk about Cape Town being full of things, like Sydney definitely is. Like half the crowd are going to be New Zealanders. So it's a friendly place for the All Blacks to play. It is actually, I think it's the first time they played this since like before COVID as well. But they obviously have a good record there. It's not that far away for them to go. And they can if they can shake off like the disappointment of losing, but then say to themselves like, hey, we just kind of went toe to toe with the world champs and almost won, then yeah, I think so.
The difference
Big question then before we let you go.
Oh, sorry. The defensive scheme, the slow slide rule defense the Wallabies are using compared to this in-your-face, umbrella, stick in your eye kind of defense. I would imagine that, Damian McKenzie, Ricky Ioane, Jordy Brad's going to have a field day against that. Is there any way, and maybe this is for you, Brett, is there any way for the Wallabies to change that, or are they committed to this kind of slide across the field?
I'll be curious to see whether there is adjustments, because Laurie Fisher told us outright he is not a blitz defense guy. That's not his mantra. It's not something he didn't say he doesn't believe in it, but it's not his method.
Bend but don't break.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see whether there's an adjustment now, because the easy narrative would be there has to be, but maybe there doesn't have to be if the connection is right. I don't know. It's like that's a very simplistic answer. I'll concede, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they look like in Sydney. The big question for you, Jamie, before we let you go is, are you making this trip to Sydney?
Yeah, at this stage I will be. I just need to sort a few things out at work.
Then our people will be in touch with your people, perhaps, and
yeah.
Try and do something about that.
Well, yeah, I'll have to tell everyone how much I love Australia. On there, 'cause now I feel like I've got a reputation, but I think people know I like Australia. Like, I've been pretty consistent with that the whole time. I do enjoy being over there, especially enjoy Sydney. It'll be my first time back there in a while, so yeah, I hope to see you next week.
For the first time, Jamie, someone has let me into the press box. I've got my accreditation, so I'm gonna.
Great.
I'm going there for about
are you gonna be like half the South African journalists? And Johannesburg, and wear a Springbok jersey.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, he probably can. Mate. This has not been the conversation I thought we would have, to be completely honest. But I've thoroughly enjoyed it because of how it turned out. So, thanks so much for reliving what has been a fascinating tour, I'm sure.
One final point, Jamie. What's the best thing you ate in South Africa?
Oh, well, considering we all ate about a cow each, I think, just the amount of steak and red meat, washed down with whatever was going. Obviously enjoyed Clippies and Coke. Like that seemed to go well with pretty much anything. But yeah, it was definitely the red meat. Yeah, I came back a lot heavier than when I left.
That's always a good sign.
Cheers,
mate. It has been fantastic. It's just been great to have you relive the tour as well as you have, and to share what you enjoyed so much. So thanks for going deep for us.
No problem. Always a pleasure talking to you guys. It's been awesome, and hope to see you soon.
This is the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast with Brett McKay and Harry Jones, and mate, that was such a good chat with Jamie Wall reporting back on his South African tour. That was not what I expected we were going to talk about in this episode, but that was fantastic.
Love Jamie, but I don't remember what we talked about on the pod because he's just chatted with us for 25 minutes. That's not on the pod about some very interesting stuff that we're not allowed to share with you.
So for our listeners and our YouTube channels, typically what happens is we get to the end of the guest bit and we just sort of pause for a bit, and we uploads happen and things like that. Pleasantries and all that. Usually it's thanks for your time and all that sort of stuff. And every now and again, we'll end up having a long conversation. We've just done that with Jamie, which was
the one I remember is Jonathan Kaplan speaking to us for about 30 minutes and showing us
these big detailed spreadsheet.
Yes, hand penned spreadsheets of every match he had ever done. It was greatness.
That's right. Yeah, fantastic.
Jamie had such a good time. You can tell that the old ethos of touring and the rugby tourist is definitely what he's all about. And so I would just encourage anyone who's thinking about that to, don't be dissuaded or discouraged by safety issues. I mean, there's safety issues in any large city in the world, but know what you're doing and where you're going. But South Africa is a great place to tour, and I would always encourage all the Saffers to do the same thing back to New Zealand. And I just think there's something about rugby that belongs on tour. Touring is part of it.
And so I wonder if there will be a big travelling New Zealand contingent that go to the Republic in 26. Like, you know, I'm not necessarily talking Lions to a scale, but I wonder if there will be, you know, large pots of. Anyway,
I would think so, because there's enough matches. There's enough matches in it to
make
do
a
that,
trip of it.
and to actually do the different centres. You know, Durban is very different from Bloemfontein, and Bloemfontein is very different from Cape Town. It's just fun to see it all. Yeah,
experience it all. Yeah, no doubt. A quick whip around the grounds, mate, with a lot, obviously less rugby being played around the world. Not no rugby, but a lot less rugby being played around. Round 3 of the Pacific Nations Cup saw Fiji beat Tonga pretty comfortably, and Japan did something similar to the US, which means those two teams are sort of seeded, I suppose, for semi-finals next weekend. So Fiji plays the US, Japan will play Samoa as well, and that's been an interesting little tournament. The top 14 started on the weekend, just gone. Can you believe that we're already talking about French rugby again? Bayonne won their first game up in the top league. Otherwise, I think it all went pretty well according to plan. But Bordeaux beat Stade pretty comfortably. La Rochelle edged Toulon. Toulouse beat Vannes, the promoted team, pretty comfortably. So, you know, early days, and we'll be talking about top 14 through till May next year or something like that. It's a long season, isn't it? Currie Cup continues, NPC continues. Tane Edmonds looked pretty bloody good. I saw a good chunk of him playing for North Harbour against Auckland, and it looked pretty good. So,
and those games have good players. I mean, you look across the team sheets, and you're like, there's plenty of people that you are in discussion with, or once were in the All Blacks. So, I think he's getting a fantastic education. Maybe more importantly, he's out of the sort of fishbowl that sometimes Sydney rugby Sydney can be, and just playing in the game and probably enjoying the hell out of it.
Yeah, no doubt at all. Games of the week and the Test match post-mortem, obviously both on hold this week, and will return next week. So make sure you're liked and followed, subscribed everywhere, and make sure you don't miss anything when we do resume next week. The biggest headlines, I think, of the last 7 days, mate, is very much talking about that 2026 tour. And on one hand, it sort of feels like New Zealand and South Africa are ready to blow up the Rugby Championship, but at the same time, the idea of old-fashioned tours is pretty cool as well. And if what it actually results in is hefty compensation for Argentina and Australia, I think everyone kind of wins.
It might be the win-win-win. Although right about now, Argentina is saying, "Hey guys, we're for real." You know, we should point out that the only 2 teams that are still in the running for the Rugby Championship are Argentina and South Africa. And Argentina is, like, people were joking about it, but mathematically, but also seriously, because the first match happens in Argentina. So Argentina could pull an upset and then push the thing to the final weekend. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something? They'd just about jump into the top 4, I reckon. If they did it, they'd get massive points lift.
And Ireland would go to number 1.
Yeah, that would be something. Rassie Rasmus has confirmed over the weekend that the Boks will be splitting their squad for the next 2 games against Argentina. He said that they'd have a few days off after the Cape Town test, come back together, and you'll send one group to Argentina and keep another one in Stellenbosch. That, I suppose you can.
And so a guy told me who knows very well that Cameron Hanekom was told to get his vaccinations, the kind of vaccinations you have to be in Argentina. And that just shows you, because Cam would be like number 5 on the depth chart of number 8s, that Rassie's going to cast a wider net. And so I think he's looking at this first game as a way to rest some of his big stars who have heavy minutes like Peter Steph-Totoy and some of the other Lucies. But secondarily, he wants to see these young players in pressure games, like invent pressure. Like, hey guys, you could win the Rugby Championship today, knowing that he has another one in reserve. Yeah,
I wonder how many he'll send to Argentina.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard Kitsoff is also going to be on the plane, so we're gonna have there's going to be some old 30 players going to come back and new. Yeah, usually because of the training, because of the desire to have proper scrum, proper line out.
2 full packs. Yeah. So he's talking about, and then he's have a squad back in South Africa as well. So I mean, depth is just incredible, isn't it? Got a final thought for the week? What's been an entertaining discussion?
I think I just need to calm down. I think I need to eat some salad. I think I need to address. I posted something which got a lot of traction, which is I was speaking to the country of South Africa, and I just said, "Why do you make me eat so much? Why do you make me sing so loud? Why do you make me drink so much? Why do you make me make so many new friends when I'm still trying to be a good friend to the old friends?" And there's an excess, there's an extremeness about South African culture, which I think Jamie picked up on, by the way. Where everything is done to the nth degree. So I think this week I'm going to be like a Zen Buddhist monk.
Might be a good week to have a few episodes off then.
Yeah, drink some water.
just to catch up. That then is episode 31 of the 8-9 Combo done. Do go and check the show notes for the links to the 8-9 Combo on Twitter and YouTube, where you find video versions and which are just still going gangbusters over there. Leave us a rating or review wherever you can and on whatever platform you are on. And if you are listening to us on a pod platform, make sure you got your auto download switched on, and you will not miss a beat as we start putting things out again in the lead up to the Bledders Load tests following week. Harry and I are on the socials in our usual places, and you'll find links to the show notes as well in our written stuff for the Raw and Rugby Pass respectively. And don't forget to head to rugbypass.tv, where the original 2019 edition of Chasing the Sun is there, where it's celebrating South Africa's Rugby World Cup win in Japan, and with the 2023 series Chasing the Sun coming soon. So head there, sign up for free, and watch it wherever you are in the rugby world. This is the 8-9 Combo, this short side set piece combination you didn't realise you needed coming from the podcast double act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones, and we will be back in your ears next week.
Come, Bledisloe with us. Hello, little logo.